Okay, back. Um, just talking a little bit about illusion of control, which is something that we all like to be able to do. Like we were talking about superstitions earlier. One of the concepts that we invoke all the time, oddly enough, is what we call sort of an illusionary correlation. Um, that in fact there's a relationship that exists where in fact there is no relationship. So you would have someone, let's say, growing a beard during the playoffs because they feel that if they have a beard, they're more apt to win a game. We joke at school about wearing your underwear inside out is a or your pajamas inside out is a good way to bring about a snow day. Of course, that's an illusionary correlation. There is no correlation. I'm sure people will argue that with me, but there is none. The other illusion of control is what we call a regression towards the mean. So if I tell you that, oh, gee, the average score, my mean score in my class was 75, and you say, oh, well, 75, that's a great mark. I'm not going to do any work. I'm not going to do anything. If his average mark is 75 and I don't do any work, then I'll be, somewhere towards 75 as well because that's the average score, which may or may not be true. Probably not true. Um, when we make a statistical statement, usually what we can do from that is make an inference, meaning we can make some kind of an overall statement about our data. I'll give you some example. Um, our question is are those differences reliable? Um, And if we look at representative samples are better than biased samples. So this is like we were talking about yesterday. If I'm going to the mall to find out how people are voting, and I'm going there Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and I'm saying, oh, well, this is a great representation of all the people in Canada. Well, it's not. It's a good representation of the people that are in the mall maybe at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday, but not for all of Canada. And so can I, when I discover how those people will vote, make an inference to how all people in Canada will vote? No, I can't. Less variable observations are more reliable than more variable ones. And so if I start to get consistent data, let's say that I am going to the mall and I'm saying, and everyone's leaning towards one particular political party that they're going to vote for, and it's almost a landslide. Well, that actually might have a little bit more clout than if they're all over the board, and it looks like it could be even all the way across the board. If there's a large slant, I may actually be able to make an inference from that. It would be a weak one, but I might be able to make an inference from that. And then the more cases that you do, if you just go into the mall and you ask one person how they're going to vote, and you can say, well, 100% responded that they're going to vote this way because you only asked one. That's not good. The larger your sample size is, the more cases that you are talking about, the more people that you're talking about, that gives you more reliable data than if you're just doing one or two people. Significance. We say that when we take sample averages and are reliable, and the difference between them is relatively large, we say that the difference has statistical significance. It's probably not due to chance variation. When we calculate out significance, and I'll show you how to do that in class, statistical significance. In psychology, we say that the difference is, the set point is at 5%. So if we get something that is an alpha level that is less than 5%, then we say it's not statistically significant, and meaning it just probably happened by chance. But if we're getting this significant difference when we're looking at our data from the norm, and it's more than 5%, we can start to say, yeah, our data has significance. It's not just a random thing that occurred. So if we're flipping a coin and we do it 1,000 times and we find that it came to heads 1% of the time more than it came to tails, we'd say, oh, that's probably just chance. But if we have this coin and we flip it 10,000 times, and it comes up 10% of the time more often coming to heads than tails, we could say that it's significant, that maybe there's something going on with that coin. Maybe it's weighted. Maybe it's, for some reason, that coin is in fact more than 5% of the time going to an answer, heads, that we otherwise wouldn't get. It should be 50-50. But if it's leaning more to one, and we've taken many, many samples, we can start to say, yeah, we need to look at that coin a little bit more. It's not just by chance. Something's going on there. Maybe it's the way he's flipping it. Maybe it's the coin. Maybe what have you. Can laboratory experiments illuminate everyday life? It can, but typically what happens is when we use a lab, we are looking at human response in its very simplistic terms. Um, we would like to get sort of underlying principles that govern behavior in a naturalistic setting. When we look at a lab and the way people act in a lab or the way that animals act in a lab, we're trying to sort of understand why people act the way that they do. But we're not suggesting this is how they'll necessarily act in nature. It's just more of an underlying principle. Does behavior depend on your culture and gender? Even when specific attitudes and behaviors vary across cultures, they often do. The underlying process are much the same. Biology determines sex, and culture further bends that gender. However, in many ways, women are as similar to men, and back and forth. When we look across cultures, we find a whole lot more the same than we find different. When we look across gender roles, we look a whole lot more that are the same than are different. We want children to be happy and healthy, and we want our relatives to do well, and people to survive, and so on and so forth. We discover that there's much more bonding us together than tearing us apart, not only gender but also culturally. There's a lot of discussion about the ethical treatment of animals, when we do experimentation. And I'll give you some APA guidelines when we get closer to doing our experimentation. You can certainly do some work with animals, but we have to follow very strict guidelines. So if you're training them to do something, and that's fine and dandy. But in any way, if it's harming or distressing the animals, then no, we would stop there. Is it ethical to experiment on people? Yes, but again, there's very strict ethical restraints. We do not want to cause any physical or psychological harm beyond any normal level that they would experience in daily life when we're doing something like that. So can we deceive people and saying we're measuring this when we're really measuring that? Yes, those sorts of things we can do. And when you start to lay out your experimentation for approval, we'll start talking about what kind of stress is acceptable, what kind of stress is not acceptable. If we put them under performance stress, we tell them they have to stack these cups in under 5 seconds in order to receive a prize. That's totally acceptable. But if we say, oh no, if you don't stack them, you're going to suffer this penalty, and the penalty is harmful or something like that, then no, we can't do things like that. Is psychology free of value judgments? Never. We always have to guard against it. We take we attempt to take our biases out. We attempt to do double-blind experiments. We attempt to manipulate variables and keep control groups exposed to the exact same behavior as experimental groups. But there are often times when we will look at things differently or from two slants. In this case here, you're either seeing the bunny or the duck. It really depends upon what your slant is coming in, what your rose-colored glasses are saying. And so we need to guard against it at all times. Is psychology potentially dangerous? Yeah, it can be. If we're not taking it responsibly, if we go off sort of half-cocked and not knowing what it is that we're doing, yeah, it can be. We can use psychological principles to harm people. The purpose of psychology is to help humanity with these problems: war, hunger, prejudice, crime, family dysfunction, etc., 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 addictions. That's the goal. But if it is used incorrectly, can it be harmful? Yeah, and unfortunately there are incidents of that that we see. Okay, that's it. That's going to end Module 3. Hopefully we'll be in school tomorrow and we'll go on Module 4. If you've got any questions about this or you want something clarified, by all means put a question in the underneath. I'm going to put a couple links up a little bit later and take a peek through those. Otherwise, enjoy your day. Talk to you later. Bye.